to say? I thought you raised your hand. Puzzle Scab said that Mark is that weird guy that sleeps on the couch. Or the Greg, as we also call it.
Wait, this is Mark, not Mike.
Yes. Yeah, he corrected himself.
Okay.
Oh, gotcha.
Or Ryan Gosling.
That's it.
Everyone says that.
I like it. I'll take it. I'll take the compliment.
Who knows what this is? This is actually PlayStation Home.
This is PlayStation Home.
This is PlayStation Home, and the reason I put this up here is because supposedly ex-PlayStation Home developers are creating a new virtual world for the PlayStation 4. Now, this is a Kickstarter from what it seems called Neotopia, but it sounds a lot like a next-generation PlayStation Home. You create and customize an avatar. There are public spaces to explore, people to meet. Thank you for the Twitch art. Events to attend and activities to get involved in, and as with PlayStation Home, you can, of course, buy virtual apartments, redecorate them, share with your friends, because that's where the whole economy really starts. That's how they make their money, because hopefully this would be a free virtual world in the same way that PlayStation Home was free. Now, Neotopia is a work of studio Mad Monkey, I think is what their name is. Founders Mark Jagger and David Dow worked on PlayStation Home, Online Experiments, Funland, and Ed Gladwin, who is also building Neotopia, worked on PlayStation Home for 8 years while at Sony. The developer is currently crowdfunding Neotopia through Kickstarter, where it's asking for 250,000 euros, I think is what it is. 250,000 euros sounds like a big ask, really, but its developers reckon it's doable from the audience. There's been other projects that have raised far more than that in the past. I think Tim Schafer's project recently raised more money than that. And then finally, they had a little quote here during their Kickstarter. This is what they had to say. Neotopia's vision is to bring together like-minded people who can interact, build, share, and play. A world where you can make new friends and keep in touch with old ones in any setting you choose. A world with everything from idyllic beaches to mountain peaks, from medieval castles to shining metropolis of the future, all of which is your playground, all of which is yours. So, PlayStation Home on PS3 actually just shut down. They finally shut that down. I think everything's lost, which is kind of sad. All that virtual clothes and apartments, all that kind of stuff, that all went to hell.
I'm sorry, your digital lives.
Yes. But, you know, we might have a replacement now, because as much as people might want to complain about PlayStation Home and think it was a huge disaster, it actually made a lot of money for Sony. They did pretty well with PlayStation Home, from, of course, all the virtual clothes and all that kind of stuff, the stupid stuff that people would buy for 99 cents.
People love spending 99 cents for stupid things.
Yeah, it did well for them, so maybe they're going to be their answer to that. Maybe they didn't feel like they could adapt it to PS4 easily, so they just had these guys jump on and kickstart it so that we pay for it instead.
Yeah.
Good news. Since Mike's not here, I guess I'm going to have to read the next story, but go ahead.
Rick, a.k.a. GFN, said that he used to have a girlfriend who was addicted to PS Home.
Really?
Yes.
I'm not surprised. Virtual worlds like Second Life and stuff, they're addictive sometimes. So.
And I have one more thing to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Happy birthday to Cool Casual Gamer.
Yeah.
Go eat your ice cream cake.
Cool and casual. So this is the news coming from Ryan Gosling.
But first, thank you to Cuban Carlos for your Twitch art.
I did me.
Go ahead.
So, big story, bad news. Ubisoft locks PS4 Assassin's Creed down in resolution to keep parity with X1.
So dumb.
Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
In an interview with Videogamer.com, senior producer Vincent Pontbriand stated, "We decided to lock them at the same specs to avoid all the debates and stuff." Yeah, it basically means that both PS4 and Xbox One versions of Assassin's Creed Unity are going to be locked at 900p, 30 FPS, so that they look the same. And yeah, the PS4 could perform at a higher resolution.
Potentially, I would say.
Potentially.
Because Black Flag did.
Yeah, Black Flag was released at 900p on both consoles, but they patched it up to 1080p on the PS4.
Yeah.
So we know the PS4 can handle.
The thing is, the PS4 has a pretty great GPU. It's about 40% stronger than the Xbox One. So because of that, it actually makes a lot of sense. 900p is about 44% less pixels than 1080p. You wouldn't even think that because it seems like they're very close, but when you multiply pixels like that, it's a lot of extra pixels. So 44% and GPU is 40% stronger makes perfect sense that that's where they would push that extra power towards resolution.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the statement caused a huge outrage across the internet, specifically on NeoGAF and Twitter. with hashtag activism
Yes.
took place with PS4 no parity. Hashtag PS4 no parity. Tweet it if it makes you mad.
It took off. It actually did it. It exploded online, and I think it was one of the causes for Ubisoft to respond, actually.
And Ubisoft did release the PR statement of, "We understand how Vincent's quotes have been misinterpreted." I don't think there's any misinterpretation here. They continue, "To set the record straight, we did not lower the specs for Assassin's Creed Unity to account for any one system over the other." I don't buy that for a second.
I don't buy it either. I think what they're saying is that instead of downgrading it, they didn't downgrade, they just always had this planned.
So it's double talk. We never planned it, so we never technically downgraded it.
Yeah.
All right. Technically.
I mean, I think what a lot of people theorize when it comes to this whole thing is that it has something to do with Microsoft, and there's no proof of that. But it does seem a little odd that suddenly, with the co-marketing deal between Unity and Microsoft for Xbox One, this is what happens. When Black Flag was co-marketed with PS4, that had better graphics than the Xbox One version. So it seems possible that Microsoft went to Ubisoft and said, this is being advertised as a Microsoft exclusive on TV. This is a co-marketing deal. You can't let it get out that the PS4 is the better version of this game. There has to be parity here. Also a little odd that when there was a blog put up by Ubisoft about this whole thing with their response, Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, retweeted it. It was like, okay, are you even trying to hide this?
Somebody's shaking hands with somebody else.
Yeah,
They didn't wash them.
And it didn't stop there, actually.
This is cold.
It seems like the PR guys just went on break over at Ubisoft, because right after that, Assassin's Creed Unity at 30 frames per second was said to be because 60 frames per second doesn't look real, is what the... I guess, who was it? The Nicholas Guerin, the world level designer over at Ubisoft. He said, at Ubisoft, for a long time, we wanted to push 60 frames per second. I don't think it was a good idea because you don't gain that much from 60 frames per second, and it doesn't look like the real thing. Okay. It's a bit like...
Somebody doesn't know what they're talking about.
It's a bit like the Hobbit movie, he said. It looked really weird. And in other games, it's the same, like the Ratchet & Clank series, where it was dropped. So I think collectively, in the video game industry, we're dropping that standard because it's hard to achieve. It's twice as hard as 30 frames per second, and it's not really that great in terms of rendering quality of the picture and the image. 30 was our goal. It feels more cinematic. 60 is really good for a shooter, action, adventure. Not so much. It actually feels better for people when it's at 30 frames per second. It also lets us push the limits of everything to the maximum. It's like when people start to ask about resolution, is it the number of the quality of the pixels that you want? If the game looks gorgeous, who cares about that number, is what he says.
Oh, that's so dumb.
Certain parts of that are fine. It's just don't bullshit us. Like, we know that 60 frames per second is better, and we know that in reality, we see at a higher frames per second than 30.
There's an entire reason for, like, anybody on PC pushes their rigs to go to, like, 60 frames per second. They keep little counters. Like, right now I'm pushing, like, 100 frames per second. Granted, yes, The Hobbit did look weird at 48 because traditional films, the media that compared to everything else that it was filmed against, is 24 frames per second, so it's less than 30 frames per second, and it's what we're used to seeing out of a movie. When suddenly you have everything in sharp clarity because you lose that odd motion blur from the lower frames per second, then it's going to look a little weird, but that's not games.
Yeah.
That's not video
games. I mean, I won't
lie.
When I first played The Last of Us on PS4, coming off of PS3, which was 30 frames per second, and sometimes a little bit below that, going to 60 on PS4 was a little bit, like, of a jarring experience. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa, this is almost too smooth. It's like, this is almost bizarre, but it only takes about 30 minutes before you're used to it, and you're like, oh, I appreciate this now. Like, the combat feels more fluid, the gunplay is more fluid. I feel like you have a question or a
We're at 112 viewers.
Thank you, guys. We will acknowledge that in just a moment. But yeah, like, it's cinematic. I can understand that a little bit. 24 is what you see in film, filmic quality, some people call it. So yeah, there might be that aspect of your development team that wants to push the cinematic quality over the frames per second. Like, I wouldn't be against Uncharted being 30 if they can push the graphics to just unfathomable degree, you know what I mean? Like, because that's the type of game where the cinematic experience is kind of important. The Order 1886 is another one like that. But, I mean, Assassin's Creed's already achieved 60 on Black Flag, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure that was 60. And it was 1080p as well. So it just seems a little odd to limit the PS4.
Odd and or just bullshit.
Or bullshit.
Was
But
Infamous
can say
60
bullshit.
frames per second?
it was unlocked.
No.
It was unlocked on PS4, and there was moments where it would go up towards 60 if you were like looking at the sky or like looking into a confined space. But for the most part, it hovered around like 40 or so. It was unlocked, which is some people hate that, and that's why Sucker Punch actually patched in the option to lock it at 30, which is always a great idea. Do that,
Yeah.
developers. Good idea. But actually, Mike and I put together a video last week, and it was called Response Time, and we asked you guys how you felt about PS4 No Parity, and we got some good responses on
Yeah.
YouTube. So I'm going to let Kristen read a few of these. They're right there below Response Time. Oh, you got your packet.
She's got her thing.
Question. Has the hashtag PS4 No Parity controversy affected your decision to purchase AC Unity? Question mark. Answers. Carlos Vega says PS4 represents more than a third of their total sales. Why will you piss off your strongest market? This feels like getting money for shooting your own foot. It will only hurt Ubisoft in the long run. Hashtag not buying.
Okay, Carlos.
That was Carlos. I wonder if you're in the chat, say hello.
Yeah, definitely. These are your comments on YouTube, guys. So if this is you that we're reading off, make sure you let us know.
The second response from Ia Bounty. PS4 was designed to use compute processing with the GPU. PS4 has 6 more GPU cores than the times 1.
X1. Xbox One.
You should have wrote that.
This was his quote, man. He just likes to abbreviate.
They will go unused, apparently. The engine is fundamentally flawed if they bottlenecked with the CPU. Team ICE must be shaking their heads.
Yeah, because that was the other thing they were saying, is that the CPU was bottlenecking them, which is just completely false. If the CPU was bottlenecking you, that would affect frame rate. That wouldn't affect resolution. GPU is resolution, CPU is frame rate. So don't bullshit us, guys. Like
Don't bullshit a bullshitter or somebody that knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's just dumb.
So the question, has the
dummies.
PS4 No Parity controversy affected your decision to purchase AC Unity? The Speechless 17 says, that's lame. I haven't bought any Assassin's Creed games, but now this decision of downgrading a game makes me contemplate on buying future Ubisoft games. That's like buying a 2014 car but having 2008 features.
Yep.
I agree.
All of them down into the negative territory right now.
It's like that AT&T commercial. What's better, more or less?
Yeah.
No, we want more. Who doesn't?
And last comment from Devil's Child. If they can downgrade the PS4 to support the Xbox One, then why can't they do the same for Wii U? Microsoft paid them millions and Nintendo didn't, which is the reason why most third-party games don't support Nintendo.
Ubisoft stopped supporting Nintendo hardcore. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is we're not going to know this for sure, but the assumption is potentially that Microsoft has something to do with this. And I wouldn't be surprised. It seems to be in their favor to have parity between the two.
I don't think anybody's questioning it. They're just saying, or they won't openly admit that, obviously, but that's what they did.
Yeah, probably.
It's pretty blatant.
Before we move on to the last story, we're at 143 in the room. Thank you so much for coming in, everyone. This is the Level Up Show, a gaming dedicated talk show on every Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're currently going through all the biggest gaming industry news from the last week. If you like what you guys are seeing, please go on twitch.tv/The Level Up Show. Heart us on there, that way you get notifications whenever our shows go live. You can also follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. We're very active. Yeah. And go on YouTube, please. Yeah. Go on youtube.com/The Level Up Show. Level spelled LVL, because everything we do gets archived on there, including tonight. Typically on the day after, tomorrow, we will put tonight's show up on YouTube. And finally, if you want to add Mike or myself tonight on PSN, I am Drew M1788, and Mike is Noob Guru.
So just real quick, Warrior and White is saying that we're saying it'll be a bad game, or thinks we're saying it'll be a bad game, and we're not saying the game itself will be bad. What we're being really harsh on is Ubisoft.
Yes.
And their decision to lower the specs of one console over the other. I guess it makes sense that they received money and a kickback for it. Yeah, okay. It's still like a shitty thing to do. That shouldn't affect the gameplay at all.
No.
We just want something to be played to the fullest of the potential of the console.
Exactly.
For the system that it's on.
Thank you for the Twitch heart. And that's the thing is 900p 30 frames per second is fine. That's better than anything we got last generation. So that's not a problem. I mean, there's a difference between 900p and 1080p. I just said it's like a 44% pixel difference. But to the typical viewer, you're not going to really focus on it too much. If you're looking at it up close, you're pixel counting, obviously you're going to notice the difference, but it's going to be just as enjoyable probably at 900p 30 frames per second. That's not the issue. As Mark said, it's the deception, the bullshitting. To take a platform and literally limit it is just ridiculous, and it really shouldn't happen, and that's what people are worried about. They don't want this to become a trend. That's all.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed could be a great game.
That's what my shirt says.